I'd like to thank everybody who's tuned in for joining us for the commemoration of the 27th Yahrtzeit of HaGaon, HaRav Avraham Aharon Price, Yahrtzeit in his Sefer, Imrei Avraham, on the weekly Parsha, for Parshat Shmini. Rabbi Price brings the opinion of the Sfat Emet that Nadav and Avihu functioned at a very, very high spiritual level, something they acquired at Har Sinai, very similar to Moshe and Aaron. The Midrash tells us they anticipated assuming leadership of the Jewish people after the death of Moshe and Aaron. However, they failed because, unlike Moshe and Aaron, they lacked the connection with the needs of the Jewish people, with the man in the street. They failed to understand that the Jewish people were going through a crisis after the sin of the golden calf, which Nadav and Avihu had escaped. When Rav Price arrived in Toronto in the 1930s, he dedicated himself to fulfilling the needs of the Jewish community. He established the first community yeshiva. He established a kashrut authority. He served as a pulpit rabbi, and not only for his own congregants, but for the city in general. During the Second World War, the British arrested young Jewish German men who had escaped the Nazis in Germany and were living in England. The British arrested them as enemy aliens and put them in internment camps. They were sent to Quebec. Rabbi Price learned of this, and he lobbied the Canadian government. He obtained their release. He took responsibility for them. He found them homes in the Toronto Jewish community so that they could resume their lives. And yet he was able to compose Sfarim of brilliant creativity, his commentary on the Smag, his commentary on the Sefer Hasidim, his commentary on the weekly Parsha, and other Sfarim. I once asked him when he had time for all this. He told me after midnight. After midnight, it was when everybody else was sleeping. He would go to his very high spiritual level. He would, for a few moments, leave the needs of the Jewish people, and he would return to the heavens. But in the morning, when he woke up, his concentration again was on the needs of the Jewish community. Our speaker today, HaGaon HaRav Asher Weiss, follows these footsteps of Jewish leadership. The focus of his rabbinic leadership is the physical and spiritual welfare of the Jewish people. The last year has been a year of crisis for the world in general and for the Jewish community in particular. The Jewish people have looked to its leadership for moral and halachic guidance, and Rav Weiss has answered that call as he has in the past. And yet he is able to author brilliant and creative works of Jewish scholarship that combine his comprehensive knowledge of Jewish rabbinic leadership with a powerful and very consistent moral message. Just before I give over the Zoom platform to Rabbi Weiss, we're hoping to have a 10-minute question and answer period at the end. And please direct your questions over chat to Rabbi Torchiner, who will read out the questions. I present to you Rav HaGaon HaRav Asher Zelig Weiss.
Thank you, Rabbi Silverberg, for your generous introduction. I especially identify with the question you asked, Rabbi Price, when do you have time for all of this? That is a question many times I ask myself. But Baruch Hashem, I thank you, Kodesh Baruch Hu. Anoisin le'yoef koyach u'le'ein onim otzma yarbeh. When we dedicate our lives and energies and our resources just to be an Eved la'avdei Hashem and to serve, we have siyata d'shmaya. And indeed, this past year has been a challenge. So just a month ago, a new sefer came out, Minchas Osher, on COVID-19. It is my 32nd sefer. And one of my Talmidim commented, 32 is Lev. That's a harm. So we assume that every new sefer that comes out is a reflection of one's mind. But I think this Sefer is also a manifestation and a reflection of my heart, my feeling, and it was a challenge this past year to be a voice of sanity, moderation, and it was a schus and a privilege. I thank you profoundly for giving me this opportunity. I am embarrassed to say that until I was approached by Rabbi Silverberg, by the family and the foundation, it's an embarrassment, but I did not hear about Rabbi Price. I was born in New York, left America before my bar mitzvah, living in Eretz Yisrael since. I have good friends in Toronto. I have Hasidim there, but I'm embarrassed to say I knew nothing about HaGaon, Rav Avraham Aharon Price. But when I did some research, I was amazed about the godless of a true Gadol B'Yisrael. Rabbi Price was 9 years old when he came to learn from the Avnei Nezer. The Sefirat Rebbe was one of the greatest Gedolim of his day and age. He was the founder of a practically new Derech HaLimud in Poland. And a 9-year-old child came to be Mekabel Torah from the Gadol Ador. In 1935, he came to Toronto, taking up a job as a Rosh Yeshiva, but in a very short while, he was far more than a Rosh Yeshiva, laying the foundation of Orthodox Jewry in Toronto, caring for Abotzes Torah, for Psak Halacha, caring for the community. There's a story I tell many times when I speak to Rabbanim or about Rabbanim. The three greatest Gedolim in Lithuania once happened to come together. Rabbi Chiel Michael Epstein, the Orche Shulchan, the Rav of Navardog, Rabbi Itzel Ponevezher, the Zeche Yitzchak, and Reb Chaim Brisker, the great Reb Chaim Soloveitchik. And they happened to discuss what is the essence of Rabbonis. Present day language, what is the job description of a Rav? The Orche Shulchan, known as a classical posek, one of the greatest poskim of his generation, said, to paskin shaylos. That's what Rabbonis is essentially all about. If you are familiar with the Zeche Yitzchak, Reb Itzel Ponevezher Sefer, it's not really that much about Psak Halacha. He was a gewaldige HaRav, a gewaldige lamden. He said, the essence of Rabbonis is Abotzes Torah. To heighten the level of Torah learning and Torah dedication of the community, you can have Meira Hayros to paskin the questions. Your central obligation as a Rav is Abotzes Torah. And then it came to Reb Chaim Brisker. This might be a surprise. Reb Chaim said a Rav is the father of the community, and maybe the mother as well, to care for the needy, the desperate, Yosoim v'Almana, Tzorchei Masa, the needs of the community. And whenever I tell the story, I say, it's a Sveika D'Oraisa. Achoiz bezeh v'gam ezeh al tanach yadcha. Rabbi Price was a paragon of excellence in the field of Rabbonis. He came to Toronto to be Marbitz Torah. He developed into a posek of the community, a father and a mother as well, to care for the community. I was especially moved to read that in his tzavor, he asked that a fund be set up to enhance Torah education for the community. And I was surprised that he didn't ask that a fund be set up to publish his ksavim. Because in the introduction to his monumental works, on my table I have the 3 huge volumes of Mishnas Avraham on the Smag, Sefer Mitzvahs Gadol. And I read his introductions. And in number 1, 2, 3 in every introduction, he prays to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, he should have the schus to fulfill and to publish all his ksavim. He wasn't zeicher. He lived to, Baruch Hashem, a very old age. But many ksavim were left to be published. He didn't ask in his tzavor that somebody take care of his ksavim. He asked somebody take care of Jewish children, the education of the young generation. And that is just a testament to his greatness and to his anava. So it's a privilege and a schus for me to be part of this Yahrtzeit and to share Divrei Torah with all of you. So thank you for giving me this opportunity. We are in the midst of the Sefirat. So we will talk about the essence, Geder Mitzvahs Sefiras Hu'oim. Lecha Eire Sefiras Hu'oim is one of the mitzvahs that we define as mitzvot shebedibur. Mitzvahs that one observes with his mouth, with speech, like Kriya Shema and Tefillah, Mea Brochas B'Kol Yom, Vidu Maises, Mikro Bikurim, Schiras Masi Amalek. Many mitzvahs, a major part of the Tariag, are defined as mitzvot shebedibur. Mitzvahs that you need to verbalize and vocalize. Mitzvahs you're makayim with your mouth and your vocal cords. However, when we examine the halachas of Sefiras Hu'omer, it doesn't fit in at all with the fundamental rules of other mitzvahs shebedibur. It seems to always be on the opposite side. So let me share with you 4 examples regarding kavon. Tov Pei Tes Siv Daled, a very well-known halacha. Mi sheshoya lo yisei chaveroi kama yomim hayoyim b'sfira. One asks another, what day is it today? Lo yoyim aloi hayom kach v'kach. Don't say today is 5 or 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 or 10, because if you responded to your friend and you told them which day it is, then that's a strike. You're out of the game because you already said what day it is. So you lost your opportunity to say the bracha. So therefore you should respond and say, yesterday was 5 or 6 or 7 or 8. And all the Achronim wonder, in Siman Samach Siv Daled in Shulchan Aruch Orachaim, the Shulchan Aruch Paskins Mitzvah Sichos Kavana. And if you perform a mitzvah without kavana, without intention, you weren't yahrtzeit. And you need to do it again with a bracha. So what's your problem if you told your friend today is this and this number? You definitely didn't have intention to be Makayim the mitzvah. You want to be Makayim the mitzvah with a bracha. You want to be Makayim the mitzvah by saying L'Shem Yichud. So what's your problem? Many different interpretations in the Achrayim. But what we see is, it is different than all the others. All the other mitzvahs shebediba, mitzvahs sichas kavana. Echoik Yankov, one of the greatest commentators in Shulchan Aruch Orachaim, on this spot in Tov Peites says, Sefiras Hu'omer is different. Einoi elo sfira ba'alme. It's just about counting. And therefore, you're yahrtzeit even without kavana. What does he mean? Kriya Shema is just about reading. Matzah is just about eating. So what is the difference between matzah, Krishna, and Sfiras Oima? Einoi elos fira ba'alma. We could use those same words by matzah. Einoi ela achila ba'alma. By Kriya Shema or any other mitzvah. That's number one. Number two, are you yahrtzeit if you don't understand what you said? Mogen Avraham, Tov Peitas Siv Beis says, if you count Sefirat and you're not familiar with the language in which you counted. And Baal Tshuva doesn't know one word of Lashon Kodesh. He speaks French, English, Swahili, whatever it is. And he says, and he doesn't really understand the language. Mogen Avraham says, you're not yahrtzeit. Rabbi Yankov Emden wonders, based on Tosfos Soita Daf Lamed Beis, all the other mitzvahs shebediva, if you said what you need to say, you're yahrtzeit even if you don't understand what you said. So why would Sfiras Oima stand apart? So let me just note, regarding Kavanas mitzvah, all the other mitzvahs do need Kavanah, Sfiras Oima does not. Regarding Havana, all the other mitzvahs don't need Havana, and Sfiras Oima does. Why is it always opposite? We move over to another area. Not Machshav and Kavana and Havana, but methodology. How are we Makayim the mitzvah? In all the mitzvahs Shebediva, we have a fundamental rule. And the source of this rule is in Sukkot Daf Chof Ches. Shameya ka'oina b'chol mokoim. Whether it's Kriya Shema, or Tefillah, or Berchas HaMazon, or Berchas HaTorah, or any other mitzvah Shebedibur, Shameya ka'oina. You can be Makayim the mitzvah by using your mouth, or using your ears. And many times when I speak about the sugya of Shameya ka'oina, I say, Meiterei kol v'tof ha'ozen. Your vocal cords and the inner ear, kruchim yardu min hashamayim. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu wouldn't create vocal cords, why we would have an inner ear? So Shameya ka'oina b'kol makom. Mogen Avraham says Sfiras Oima is an exception. And why is that? Why is it different? Why does it stand apart? How about ksiva? Could one be yahrtzeit Sfiras Oima by writing? You might be surprised, but Rabbi Kiva Ega, Tshuvas Rabbi Kiva Ega, Chelek Aleph Lamed Aleph Lamed Beis, discusses this question with his uncle, Rabbunim Ega. Rabbi Kiva Ega's conclusion is no, but the mere fact that he contemplates is already strange. Did anybody ever consider being yahrtzeit Kriya Shema by writing? If that would be an option, I would have an eitzah for all the Seifrei Stam. You could earn an extra few dollars every day. Instead of saying Kriya Shema Shachas HaRav, write another mezuzah. The Aruch Shulchan says, this is insane. How could a person be yahrtzeit any mitzvah shebediva by writing? We never even heard of an option of a have amina. But the Kaf HaChaim quotes some achronim that paskan halacha lamaisa you could be yahrtzeit Sfiras Oima by writing. So doesn't this seem strange? It is always different. Bein lakula, bein lachumra. All the other mitzvahs shebediva we say Shameya ka'oina, except Sfiras Oima. We never say ksiva kedibur, except Sfiras Oima. So what is it about? So let me share with you a Yahrtzeit in mitzvah Sfiras Oima that I wrote many years ago, and it's Minchas Osher Moyadim Chelek Gimel, which came out just a year ago. Almost nobody has this sefer because it was published when Corona was raging. So it didn't really sell. And that's Chelek Gimel Minchas Osher Moyadim. Usfartem lachem shetei svira lachol echad v'yechad. Tosfos explains in Menachos Samachay, and that Ramban is the same in Parshas Emor. Why do we need a posuk shetei svira l'kol echad v'yechad? There would be a havim in it, that this is a mitzvah which rests on the shoulders of Beis Din, like Sfiras, Shnois, Hashmita, v'hayovel. Kamash malan, no, it's upon each and every individual. And I wonder, how do we know that Kriyas Shema is on every individual and not on the Beis Din? Is Berchas HaTorah might be on the Beis Din? All the other mitzvahs should be there, but of course they rest on each and every individual. I think the rationale is this. All the other mitzvahs shebedibar are by their very essence and very nature avodas hukeil, serving a Kodesh Baruch Hu. There are many forms of connecting to a Kodesh Baruch Hu. Shevach, Hoidaya, Bakosha. All the other mitzvahs shebedibar are in their very essence avodas Hashem. When you sing the praise of a Kodesh Baruch Hu, or you express gratitude to a Kodesh Baruch Hu for his chasodim, for his mercy, for the abundance he bestows upon us. When you reach out to a Kodesh Baruch Hu and you plead with him, those are all different forms of avodas ukeil. Counting, in its very essence, is not avodas Hashem. It's a technicality. Out of the Taryag mitzvahs, there are only 4 that involve counting. Could you guess which are those 4 mitzvahs? Out of 613, there are 4 mitzvahs which involve counting. Obviously, Sfiras Roim is one of them. Sfiras Shnois HaShmita v'Hayovel, counting the 7 years. Number 7 is Shmita. Number 50 is Yovel. Number 3 is Sfiras HaZava v'Hanida Shebenekiyim. Part of the process of Tahara, of purification. Number 4, Maser Behem. You count 9 animals. Number 10, to leave the pen, is smitten with a red rod. And that is Maser Behem. Everybody understands that Shiva Nekiyim is not avodas ukeil. We only need to count if there's a need to know a number. Otherwise, why would there be a reason to count? The Zava counts 7 days because after Shiva Nekiyim, she goes to the mikveh. We count 9 animals because number 10 should be sanctified as a korban. We count 49 years because we need to be mekadesh yovel. We count 49 Yemei Sfira for a reason. Because number 50 is Chag HaShavuos, Atzeres, Yom Kabbalas Yahrtzeit. Counting is only counting. In its essence, it's not avodas ukeil. So in many of my shiurim and in many of my sforim, one of the fundamental yesodis in Gidrei HaMitzvahs is there are 2 different categories in mitzvahs. There are those mitzvahs that are essentially avodas Hashem. It is all about the actual deed. There are many other mitzvahs that are essentially about the result and about the outcome. Just to give some fundamental examples, building a mica on your roof is not avodas ukeil. Building is building. It's all about the result. We don't want anybody to fall off your roof. We don't anyone to be hurt and endanger human life, and that is why you need to build a mic. Bir chometz, burning chometz. It is not essentially an act of avodas ukeil. It's just associated with bal yaroa and bal yamotza. It is a prohibition to have chometz in your possession on Shabbos and that on Pesach, and that is why you need to burn The chametz before Pesach. But all the other mitzvahs shebedibar are essentially avodas Hashem. So let me share with you a secret that I uncovered. All the mitzvahs that are essentially avodas Hashem are mitzvahs of Seder HaYom, unless they're associated with HaGaon and Moyadim. They are all Seder HaYom. Because the routine of an observant Jew is a routine of avodas Hashem. So all the mitzvahs that are, by their very nature, avodas Hashem, are Seder HaYom. Talmud Torah, Kriyas Shema, Tefillah, Me'ah Brochas B'Kol Yom. And then, HaGaon and Moyadim, Kiddush and Havdalah, Matzah and Moreh, Sukkah and Lulav. All the others are about the result, about the outcome. And that is where Sefirat Loim stands apart from all the other mitzvahs shebedibu. All the others are essentially avodas Hashem, servitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because all the other mitzvahs shebedibu are either singing the praise of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or thanking HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or pleading with HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Those are all la'avdoi b'chol levavchem. Ezui avodah shebelev zu tefillah. Sefirat Loim is different. Sefirat Loim is about the result. Like Masa Behema, like Shiva Nekiyim, like Shneisa Shemitah V'Yovel. Because counting, in its very essence, is just about achieving the result of counting, which is the number we need to know. And that is why the halachas of Sefirat Loim are fundamentally different than the halachas of all the other mitzvahs shebedibu. It is a aside which I very well established in many sources in my firm. Whenever the essence of the mitzvah is about the result, mitzvahs ein tzrichas kavana. If we examine the entirety of Shas, where do we find mitzvahs tzrichas kavana? Brochas Yud Beis, Berchas HaMitzvah, Brochas Yud Gimel, Kriyas Shema, Psachim Kuf Yud Daled Moror, Rosh Hashanah Chof Chest, Ki Yeshoifer and Achilas Matzah. Halei Davahu. Nowhere in Shas do we find a discussion of mitzvahs tzrichas kavana regarding mitzvahs that are about the outcome, the result. All the sugyas dealing with kavanas mitzvah are only mitzvahs that are essentially avodas Hashem, and that is why Sefirat Loim stands apart. In all the others, mitzvahs tzrichas kavana, Sefirat Loim is an exception because it's about the result. And that is why if someone asks you, which day is today? You can't answer. And if you answered, you already counted. And once you counted and determined the number, you are Yahrtzeit, even without any intention. And that is the same reason that if you don't understand your language, how would that be considered count? If you don't know which number you stated and you don't understand what you said, that cannot be considered a count. You said something, you were aware it's a mitzvah, and that is why in all the other mitzvahs shebedibu you're Yahrtzeit, not Sefirat Loim. And this makes so much sense. And the same when we move over to question number 2, Shomea Ka'ina. Shomea Ka'ina is Yahrtzeit in all the other mitzvahs. But the difference between the one that talks and the one that listens is one is active and that one is passive. Listening to a number is not defined as counting. It would pass as part of the ritual of avodas Hashem. Yes, but it's not considered a count. And on the other hand, when you write a number, I think that would be even more sensible than using your mouth. When you write, that is here to stay. And therefore, there is room to assume that Sefirat Loim, unlike all the other mitzvahs shebedibu, regarding Sfiyas Oime, we would say Ksiva Kedibur. Lahalacha Ksiva is not Kedibur. Let me make that clear. Ein halacha kedivrei achronim that you could be yaitzu with ksiva. But what I try to explain, why would that at all be a having minute? Why would that be a question? And that is the very question which astonishes the Aruch HaShulchan. And he wonders. We never heard ksiva would be sufficient in any other mitzvah. So what I'm trying to explain, there's a reason. Yes. So in all these four sugyas, kavana, all the other mitzvahs, yes. Sfiyas Oime, no. Havana, all the others, no. Sfiyas Oime, yes. Shomea ka'oina, all the others, yes. Sfiyas Oime, no. Ksiva kediva, all the others, no. Sfiyas Oime, yes. Seems amusing, but the way I understand it, svara gedola, I think it makes a lot of sense. So that is my fundamental approach and agdara on the mitzvah of Sfiyas Oime. I would like to share some fundamental thoughts with you before we come to the questions and answers about the essence of Sfiyas Oime. Pshutay shel mikra, this mitzvah seems to be associated with korbanos. We start the Sefira, and the pasuk says, "Miyayim haviyachem es oimer hatnufa." And as we count day 49, ve'ekraftem mincha chadosha lahashem. But in the interpretation of our great Rishonim, Sefirat Mitzvah Shin Vov, Rabbeinu Yerucham, and many others, their approach is this mitzvah is primarily associated with Kabbalah Satayra. As we leave Mitzrayim, we begin our journey, and our focus, our destination is Har Sinai and Kabbalah Satayra, and from there, ultimately to Eretz Yisrael and Binyan Beis Hamikdash. So many giants of Torah and Musar felt that there must be a connection between Memtes Yemei Sfira and Mem Chesvorim Shatoyra Nikneis Behem that we learn in the 6th perek of Masechet Avos. But then the question would be, it's 48 and not 49. If these two numbers should be associated, why wouldn't Chazal say Memtes Vorim Shatoyra Nikneis Behem? They would ask me to suggest one more. Oh, I could suggest 10 more. That would be easy. But if Chazal say at Torah niknes b'mem chesvorim aleim ein lahisaf u'mehem ein legroa, 48 is 48, not 47 and not 49. But the Rasul Salanta still argued, yes, 48 Kinyonei Torah are associated with 49 days of Sefira. What do we do with the extra day? Well, the Chidush Harim and Rasul Salanta suggests the extra day should be dedicated to Chazorah. The last day, we do Chazorah and recheck and re-examine. Did we achieve full control of Amchas Kinyonei Torah? I find this suggestion very unreasonable. Very unreasonable. Chazorah is important, but it's more minig in yeshivas. I don't think it's reasonable that Torah gives us 49 days and 48 Kinyonei Torah. If we need to do Chazorah, we would need at least a week, not a day of Erev Shavuos. My feeling is this. Why do we think the extra day is the last day? Maybe it's the very first day. In Avodah Zarah Daf Chof, we learn the famous Bryce of Rav Pinchas ben Yoel. How does one achieve greatness? 10 steps. Zehirus brings to Zrizus, Nekiyus, Precious, Tahara, all the way up to Ruach HaKodesh. The Yerushalmi in Masechet Shkolim has a different system. More abbreviated one. But the Mesilas Yesharim based his entire monumental work on the Brisa of Reb Pinchas ben Yair. So the Mesilas Yesharim, the Ramchal, was one of the greatest Balei Kabbalah of his era. And most of his form are pure Kabbalah. Mesilas Yesharim is a gift to Klal Yisrael. It is the only one of his form that is really Shov Alachol Nefesh. Every young Yeshivik Tana boy, the greatest sage, they will all appreciate the Mesilas Yesharim. But one wonders, because the Pinchas ben Yair starts off Torah, Meviyara de Zehirus, Zehirus to Zrizas, Zrizas to Nekias, and the Mesilas Yesharim skips Torah. Doesn't entirely skip Torah. He explains Torah in Perek Aleph, but not at length as all the others. My feeling is he didn't skip Torah at all. Do you recall the heading, the caption of Perek Aleph in Mesilas Yesharim? Bebiur klal chayvus ha'adam b'yolamai. The essence of man's mission in life. I think that is the way Mesilas Yesharim interpreted Torah. Mashal lama adavar daima. A king summoned his greatest general, number one strategist, military commander in the middle of the night. Do you realize that all the Mishalim are about kings and princes? He comes to the king's office, and the king says, I want to demand from you mission impossible. You need to fly out to a very remote destination, me'ever lahorei choshech, me'ever lesambatyon, and conquer a fortress. And this strategist starts reading off numbers. I will need 10 choppers, helicopters. I will need an elite unit, a platoon of Navy SEALs and another one of Army Rangers. And he starts reading out numbers, and the king says, no, you're going too fast. Before you tell me what you need, I want you to understand what I need. And I want you to understand that failure is not an option. If you fail in this mission, your life will be in danger, your family will be in danger, the republic will fall. And it is only if you understand this that you really stand a chance to succeed. So the Pinchas ben Yair gives us a list of what to work on. Zehiras, Rizas, Nekias, Precious, Tahara, all the way up to Ruach HaKodesh. And we are geared to go full blast ahead. No. Before you start embarking on this journey, if you want to understand why failure is not an option, you will never succeed. It is only if you understand that you must succeed, that you have a chance to do so. And therefore, Torah means biur klal chayvas ha'adam b'yolam. And that is my feeling in Memches Vorem Shetoyna Nekneis Behem. We're motivated, we're anxious. Yes, let's charge ahead. Now, the very first day is a day for reflection. Let you be aware that the price of Kinyan Torah does not start with the Memches Vorem. The very first halacha is kol ha'osek b'Torah l'shma zocher l'dvoram arba. B'chol yom v'yom bat chol yotzet machorev oy lehem lebriyas mi'alaboynet shel Torah. Al tis'ava l'shulchanam shel malachim. Shulchancho gadol mishulchanam v'kitrocha gadol mikitram. That is day number one. Before you embark on this journey, you need to understand why you must succeed. Because that is what life is all about. Kabbalah Setai and serving a Kadosh Baruch Hu. Life is a mission. and we're here to fulfill our mission and do our duty. You fulfill your mission and you move on. That's what life is all about. So Rav Price fulfilled his mission and he dedicated his life to our Batzis Torah, to serve Klal Yisrael. We should take him as an example and dedicate our lives to our Batzis Torah and to serving Klal Yisrael. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, and my bracha to all of you is, each and every one of us should be Zeicha L'Kaddish Shem Shemayim every day of his life. Rabbi Silverman or Silverberg?
So this is Mordechai Twitchiner, and Dr. Silverberg asked me if I could present the questions that people have sent. So Rebbe, there are a couple of questions about the Shiur, but
so on the window, I see it's Samuel Silverberg, so I thought you're Rabbi Silverberg.
Oh, I'm Dr. Silverberg, and you're speaking to Rabbi Mordechai Twitchiner.
Okay, thank you.
You'll be handling
I hear the questions.
Okay, so there were a couple of questions about the Shiur itself, but there were a few about COVID and that I think are pressing within our community right now. So with Rishus, I think I'll put those first and see if we can go through those. The Ontario government has been adding restrictions of late because of the COVID situation locally. And most recently, they instituted a rule due to go into effect tonight, saying that it's now a maximum of 10 per religious service. So that has raised a variety of questions, which I know Rebbe has dealt with in a variety of ways already in his writings, nonetheless. Question number one, if one is convinced that they can perform mitzvos, daven, and learn safely and securely without exposing people to potential spread of disease, but the government's policies forbid this mitzvah performance anyway, what is the appropriate course of action?
I feel very uncomfortable addressing questions halacha l'maisa, when my response might be contrary to the local rabbanim. I mean, you have a Torah leadership in Toronto, but I never shy away from questions, and I will respond nevertheless. But I do apologize, and I do not want to get into controversy, but I think if the government does allow 10 people to come together, then you could say Kaddish, you could say Kedusha, you have a minyan. Fundamentally, I think it's important to follow the rules for two different reasons. One is Dina de Malchusa. And these rules were put into effect not by the Bolsheviks, not by the Romans 2,000 years ago. So the Canadian government or the local authorities in Ontario are not trying to tear Jews away from their Torah. These rules were put into effect for the benefit of the broader community. And when you break these rules, then where is the limit? So yes, sometimes the rules aren't reasonable, but rules are never reasonable to their extreme. But there must be rules. So yes, if you have a huge backyard and it's open space, there really is no danger of 20 people coming together. But if you say you don't need to adhere to rules, then 20 people might come together in a little room, and that would be an extreme danger. I am also very concerned about Chilul Hashem. And we need to be aware that this is a day and age of instantaneous information. There are no secrets. And we had enough of Chilul Hashem in New York, in Eretz Yisrael, and in many other places of the world. So Baruch Hashem, we could come together 10 people, so we have a minyan. I think we should follow the rules.
Thank you. A follow-up question on that. What should our approach be when there is ambiguity in terms of interpreting guidelines? Let's say the guidelines sound like it could be 10 per building, but perhaps it could be 10 per room within the building. Do we need to go lifnim mishuras hadin in keeping dina de malchusa dina?
I think reasonability is the key, or in other words, sechel hayosher, common sense. I don't think we need to say sveike diuraisa lechumra. As long as you're within the realm of reasonability, we should do our best to be mekayim all the mitzvahs and to serve a Kodesh Baruch Hu in the most beautiful and shleimistic way. But I do think you need to be reasonable and apply common sense and basic understanding what these rules are about. That is about all I could comment on this question.
Okay. And then the third COVID-related question comes from a local high school student. He writes, over the past year, we have seen Rabbanim, Rosh Yeshiva, and Poskim ignoring COVID-19 regulations. Personally, this has been a hard pill to swallow, though I keep the Rav's letters and Piskei Halacha on my desk at all times as a reminder of true Derech HaPsak. More alarming is that to me, this seems to be part of a larger trend within all religious communities of finding specific sources to fit with one's views and cultural norms. Does the Rav agree with this assessment? And if so, what can be done to find the middle path without jumping to extremes, in the language of the Rambam?
This is a very troubling question and troubling phenomenon. And I've been hearing this from many, many people, as you said, from many communities. To many people, their emunas chachomim has been diminished. And that's such a tragic loss. On one hand, it would be very comfortable for me to say to everyone, okay, so believe on me. You know, be my Hasidim. Everybody wants a lot of Hasidim. So I could tell all those people that were disappointed with our local Rav, our local Rosh Yeshiva, and the reason they turned to me is because, you know, I was outspoken. So it would be very comfortable to me to say, I'm the one, and I'll be happy to have you on board. But that is ridiculous. It's silly. And I think we need to realize Talmidei Chachamim are human. We all are human. We all have shortcomings. And we need to be respectful. This was a very challenging time. And because so many Rabbonim are so dedicated and devoted to their Avodas Hashem and close to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, I think there was a real concern whether these rules and restrictions and closing down shuls and closing down schools might have an extreme negative impact on who we are, the way we learn, the way we daven, and that brought them to opinions with which I have disagreed, and I still disagree. What we should try to understand, these people are great people and great Talmidei Chacham. And we followed their guidance for many years, and I hope we will continue to do so for many years in the future. So I'm just trying to explain, yes, there is right and there's wrong, but we always need to be respectful. Let me say this with a touch of humor. About 7 or 8 months ago in Eretz Yisrael, on the very same day, 2 Choshev Rabbanim came out with psukim. One paskin, those people that don't wear masks and they don't follow social distancing, they have a din of a roidef, and you can be mitzad of them to minyan. The very same day, an Averov from the other side of the aisle came out with a psak. Those people that inform the government and the police about others that break the rules, they are a moiser, and you can be mitzad of them to minyan. And when I heard these two psukim in the very same day, I said, okay, so what's the problem? We need to daven b'yechidus anyway, because you can be mitzad of anyone to minyan. Either he's a roidef or he's a meiser. So let's keep our fundamental sanity. This one is not a roidef, and that one is not a meiser. This one might be right, and that one might be wrong, but they all have good intentions. And I think many Gedolim were rightfully terrified whether this new mode of conduct will have a devastating and lasting effect. And let me say this. In many parts of the world, we seem to be moving out of the pandemic, including Yahrtzeit. It's amazing. The vaccine proved to be far more effective than our best expectations. And I'm proud of being the first one that came out strongly, turning to people, you must vaccinate. But still many people aren't coming back to shuls. And many people prefer to daven outside on the street, in the parks. It's more convenient, lighter atmosphere. And I think many Gedolim were really afraid that this might have a long-term effect on the education of our children, on our dedication to Torah, on our shuls, on our congregations. Havidanas kolodam l'kavschus, and especially great Talmidei Chachamim. So I made my opinions very clear throughout the year, but I was always respectful. And I think I never was disrespectful toward any Rav, any Gadol B'Yisrael, and I very much hope that we will overcome this period and once again have the utmost kvada Torah and admiration for our Rabbanim and Rosh Hashivas, which they really deserve, in my opinion. I hope I made myself clear.
Thank you very much, Rabbi. There are more questions that were submitted, but we had set a 10-minute question and answer period. I don't know Rabbi's schedule.
I can take one more or two more questions.
I have one more question.
Okay.
Sorry.
I have one more question. My name is Label Zilberman. I'm one of the Talmidim of Rav Price, my Rebbe Rav Price, Zechet Tzaddik Livracha. I wanted to ask the Rav about the Divrei Torah that he said, because with Sefirat Omer, as the Rav alluded to, there is the mitzvah. The pashtus in the mitzvah is the pashtus of the mitzvah is just a count, and we see that in the L'Shem Yichud that we say before. For those who say L'Shem Yichud, we say exactly what the Rav said, what it says in the Torah. And then it says V'krafta mincha chadosh l'Hashem. But in the Yahrtzeit later on, Harachman Yachzol on his Beis Hamikdash, which could be expansion on what we said in the L'Shem Yichud, but the other things are the Tar Nafsheseinu, the Klishmuseinu, Mitumoseinu, and also
that is a
I haven't finished my question yet. Excuse me, I haven't finished my question.
Okay, I'm listening.
Yeah, my question is how much, because I'll be Kabbalah and I'll be Chassidus, Sefirat Omer has involved in it what a person is going to achieve until the end of the year, and maybe even till the next Sefirat Omer. And in the L'Shem Yichud, when we talk about the mitzvah ba'atzma, and later on we have all the other things, which seems to be that all the Yehudim, all of Torah and mitzvahs and Ma'asim Tovim are included in Sefirat Omer. My question is that part of our kavanah, even though the Rav said there's no din of mitzvah tzrichas kavanah by counting, but we are investing a lot of kavanah into the mitzvah?
Okay. So let me say this. Kavana is one concept, and Lishma is another. You made a very relevant and interesting comment, but there's a difference between halacha and lamdis on one hand, and chasidus and pnimius on the other. In Hagdoras HaMitzvah, counting is just about knowing the number, as I explained before, and I don't want to go over it again. But in pnimius, it's a totally different story. Yes. So the 7 weeks, according to the Zohar on Parshas Emor, coincide with Shiva Nekiyim, Aliyah Metumah L'Tahara, and that is why in all the situations, based on Kisvei Ha'ari, the 7 weeks are against Sheva Sefiros, Chesed, Gvura, Teferes, Netzach, Hod, Yesod, Malachus. But that is Pnimius, that is Chasidus, that is Kabbalah. In the basic definition in Hagdoras HaMitzvah, I think it is precisely as I explained. But in Avodas HaNefesh, in Pnimius, of course, these 7 weeks and 7 days of each week have a shaykhus with the Sheva Sefiros, and I don't have time now to elaborate what these Sheva Sefiros are about. But just as a brief response to your very relevant question, it is the difference between the Lamdish Hagdora of a mitzvah and the Pnimius of the mitzvah. I just want to turn to everybody involved. Mishnas Avrom and the Smag is a monumental work. You know, it brings to mind the Minchas Chinuch. And I gave a letter of recommendation to the 4th volume. I would strongly suggest a new publication of all the 4 volumes in a more friendly and concise, compact form. I assume that is what you have in mind, but I want to encourage that. So I think when we published volume number 4, probably would be kidai to have a new publication of the entire set. Thank you for giving me this opportunity. Have a wonderful day. And the schus of Rabbi Price should be with all of you and with his family. And we should share beside the service. And let us hope that this pandemic will, in the very near future, be over in Canada, in Eretz Yisrael, and in the entire world.
Thank
Amen.
you very much.
Thank you very much, Rabbi Weiss. You outdid yourself. Your reputation is remarkable. Your share tonight exceeded everything we expected, and we hope to hear from you again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. All the best.
Thank you.
Go ahead.